Tiffany and you. One and one together make two. All the stories that are true. Tiffany and you.
Hi everyone, it's Tiffany and I have a really exciting guest on this episode today. We're chatting with Marcela Marañon. Hi Marcela.
Hi Tiffany, thank you for having me in your podcast.
Of course. So I always love sharing a little story about how I met all of my guests. And Marcela and I guess we met on Instagram. She has this really incredible Instagram under the handle The Journey of a Brave Woman. And I have actually been following her for quite some time and saw that she had been posting a lot of content around her journey or her Kilimanjaro trek. And so I slid into her DMs, as one does, because I also hiked Kilimanjaro, and asked if we had the same summit day, because I remember seeing the Pfizer group. And since everyone was so bundled up, it was hard to tell who was who. So we realized that we actually both had the same summit day, exchanged a couple Kilimanjaro stories. And I'm just like so excited to have Marcela on the podcast so we can chat all things Kilimanjaro and more. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's too much coincidence that we both were, at the same time in the mountain. It's just crazy.
I know.
And when you say, oh yeah, I think I saw you in the summit, and I'm like, what? So how did we connect here? What's going on? So I guess that this is meant to be.
It is meant to be. So there's an Emory professor who is very big on sharing disability origin stories. And as you know, I founded a disability advocacy organization. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about your disability origin story.
Perfect. Okay. So when I was 19 years old, I moved to America to enroll in college to learn English as a second language because my degree in Peru requires one. So a year later, after moving to Dallas, Texas, I was involved in a really bad car accident. My driver was drinking and driving. And so the accident left me paralyzed from the waist down. I lost my left leg above the knee. And also I got an amputation above the knee on my left leg. And also I lost my boyfriend. He passed away in the accident. So it's been 18 years since then, and this is how I became disabled. Or maybe let's say able, because I don't have nothing like defines me disabled with everything I have done.
For sure. Well, there's also the movement around really wanting to reclaim our own disability identity. So similar to you, I got into a car accident when I was 9 years old. My dad was driving. He passed away.
I'm
sorry.
And
I acquired, so I also have a type of paralysis, but it only impacts one of my arms. And so my right arm became paralyzed, also lost a loved one. And so I just love kind of sharing these disability origin stories because everyone has a different one. Mine happened when I was 9. So I've been disabled for over 20 years, but still learning, still doing stuff, so I love that. Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, it's incredible that we both have similar, similar situations, like you lost a loved one and then you become, you become disabled, you have a disability. So yeah, I mean.
Yeah. And it's the type of thing where, and the reason why I really like disability origin stories, and the Emory professor, her name is Rosemarie Garland Thompson. The reason why I love these stories is because, our story, it's not just a disability story. It's also, there's grief in there, there's trauma.
Overcoming.
Exactly. And having to work through all of that is all part of the journey as well. So, despite having that that really traumatic accident happen, you are kind of on this mission to make the world more accessible. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about kind of what you're doing in the accessible travel space, new projects that you're working on.
Perfect. So I'm not trying to make the world accessible because, as you know, it's very hard. There's not much awareness and education in the world, for society in general. So, but what I'm doing right now, I'm using my social media platform to educate and bring awareness about the countries I visit when it's about accessibility. I also trying to reach out to organizations that fight for accessibility in their countries to to grow my connections, and also when I and also have information before I post it on Instagram or on Facebook about that country. So last year, for example, I was in Israel, I was in Jordan, Hong Kong, in India. So when I was in Israel, I reached out to one of the founders of the biggest accessibility organization in Israel. His name is Yuval. When I was in India, I also reached out to Patrick. He also runs a accessibility organization there in India. So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to meet them and talk about their accessibility, congratulate them if they have done amazing work for their communities. And that's what I'm doing right now. I am not really going to countries and make them accessible because I think that each citizen in their country are responsible for that. I'm just someone who travels the world and shows accessibility to all the people that follows me, that think that because they're in a wheelchair they cannot travel, or they're going to face a lot of challenges. And yeah, they're going to be facing a lot of challenges, but there's also places that are working very hard to make their sites accessible. So
For sure, for sure. And I know that I think it's just really powerful that you have like over 50,000 followers on Instagram. You have a Facebook page too. And the fact that you're using those to really elevate the people that you're meeting or the organizations in these different countries that you're traveling to and highlighting their work is part of showcasing what's out there for everyone.
That's what I'm trying to do, because I do not want to be the type of chick or I don't want to be a traveler with a disability that only posts nice photos and make nice videos. I mean, my mission is I'm going to go there by myself. I travel solo. I'm going to test your city to see if it's accessible. I'm going to meet with you. And I am going to use our meeting to learn more about accessibility, because I don't know much about accessibility. I never went to school and got a degree on it. I know about accessibility because of my own experience. And
Yes.
when I spread this message in social media, I share my own experiences. I never speak about, I need this because this is what people with disability needs. We understand that my needs are very different from other people who has disability. So I'm trying to deliver the right message, but also trying to include everyone in my social media and not make it only about myself. So if you go to my social media, you're gonna see people that I have highlighted and tell their stories, because that is all about sharing other people's stories and share their accomplishments when it's about making the life of people with disability better.
Yes, yes. And I love the fact, within the inclusive design world, there's often a saying that you design for one to design for all,
Exactly.
right? So you can only approach your experience with your lived experience at the center and start from there to see how can we design this experience for Marcela, and then hopefully that will be able to have a trickle effect to other people who may have similar experiences.
Exactly.
But then also, I just love being able, the fact that you're sharing the stories from the words of the person, him or her or themselves, you know? So firsthand experiences are so important, speaking on behalf of yourself, knowing that you are the expert in yourself.
Yes.
I love all of that. So I also saw you had a merch store that is and a portion of those proceeds supports accessible travel. How does that work?
Well, last year when I traveled to India, I partnered with Patrick. He is the founder of Ram My City in Bangalore, and now he made his organization national. So what Patrick does is he go and speaks in corporations and talk about accessibility, work with business owners on how they can improve their accessibility in their businesses, with restaurants, bars. So he knows a lot of people because he's very involved into making his city accessible. So I partnered with him last year, and I say, Patrick, I love what you're doing. I've been following you in Instagram for a long time. I would love to contribute in India and start something, like start a movement. And I would like to do this in India and then maybe in another country and a lot of that. But for that, I need funds, right? So my first accessibility project, when I partnered with Patrick, because you cannot go to another country and say, I'm going to donate these ramps or I'm going to donate this money and you do whatever with that, right? So but you have to reach out these people from these organizations that are working with wheelchair access and try to make a plan and work with them, because they have to really get permissions from the city and do all of that. They're citizens of those countries. So Patrick did everything for me. All I did is, okay, let's have all of this together. You're an expert on this. You know your community very well. So I'm just gonna go there. I'm gonna donate these ramps, and we're gonna host an event for over 20 kids with disabilities. All disabilities, Tiffany, not only a spinal cord injury. We had all disabilities, and you can see that on my Instagram page. And Patrick and I did that. I mean, I donated that. It was very successful. The part about this whole mission work that I did is that in Bangalore, there is a tennis complex, okay, tennis court complex, and this tennis court complex didn't have ramps at all. Tiffany, it was so bad. I was there, okay. And so we have, in Bangalore, there is a very popular adaptive tennis team that they go and play with different adaptive athletes around India. And these kids are all ages, from 13, 14, 15, 20, 25. And they all have different disabilities, mostly wheelchairs, and mostly wheelchair users. And they didn't have ramps to get to the tennis court. And they go practice 3 times a week. So what they always had to depend on people to help them get into the tennis court. So all I did is I donated ramps. I made the complex accessible for them. We had a permission from the city, of course. And now these kids are able to go to their tennis practice and do not depend on people helping them to get to the tennis court. So when I donate those ramps, I kind of give them the freedom and the independence to do it themselves. And that's all I want to do. Help people to be a little bit more independent with my projects. So I am planning to do the same in Peru, but this year I launched a t-shirt line, sweaters and t-shirts. If I sell one t-shirt, I'm donating money. But to be honest, this is a brand new business, and I want my projects to do well, and I will do anything I can to make it happen. And if I don't have to make no profits this year, because I am going to be spending every single dime that I made with my t-shirts this year to make my project accessible, I am going to do it, because the investment is already there. Whatever, if it multiplies, good, because that's gonna contribute to my projects. I'm not a not-for-profit. I am not someone that is asking people to donate money. This is something that I want to do, and I think that God has blessed me with so many opportunities, and I just want to give back, and that's what I'm trying to do right now.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I know you mentioned something about a fundraiser. So is this new merch store to try and do something similar in Peru, the next kind of like the next iteration of of where you'd like the funds from this merch store to
Yes,
go?
yes. So if you go to my Instagram, you're gonna see the Brave Woman shop. And I have all my t-shirts and sweaters in Shopify. So if you buy one, that money is gonna go to the next project. So that's where the investment is already done. And my goal is to not be able to touch any more money from my savings. I want whatever I have invested to multiply to make projects available. I
Yeah, and
mean,
we'll
my projects possible. I'm sorry.
for sure. Yeah, and we'll include a link to the Shopify in our show notes, but it's beautiful messages like be kind to yourself, be a good human, know your why. I mean, I mental health matters. I love all of this stuff. That's great. And then what exactly is the project in
So
Peru?
what I'm gonna do in Peru, I am working right now because I haven't selected the organization, but I joined a Facebook group in Peru that has lots of leaders that run organizations, right? Disability organizations. So
Mm-hmm.
I really wanna attack the poorest cities in Peru. That's my mission: help the poor. And by doing that, I have to really choose the right organization that is really going to benefit from what I want to do, like donate ramps. For example, this year, what I want to do, and I hope I can make it happen, Tiffany, because this coronavirus is just messing my whole thing. Believe me. And
Mm,
so,
mm. You're not the only
yeah.
one.
So, and people don't want to spend money right now because they don't know what is going to happen in the next month. So, but in Peru, what I want to do is like go ahead and connect with a school that helps children and young kids with disabilities to get better, with the empower them to do better, or give them good education and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to do is go into that school and make it accessible for them if it's lacking of accessibility, like if they don't have ramps, if their doors are too
Mm-hmm.
small, try to make their doors, a little bit bigger, maybe put some ramps. And also, I would like to donate technology. I would like to donate iPads or computers where they can, learn new skills, because we have a lot of good applications, learning applications that they can just improve their skills. So that's what I would like to do. And for that, I need money. So
Yes, I love it. I love it. I
so I
love,
have
yeah,
to I
so
have to find
definitely.
the right organization, because any of my projects consist on, okay, well, I give you $500 or $1,000 and you see what you're gonna do. No, my projects is like, I'm gonna do this and I am going to be there to see that you're doing what we agree. So this is very important to
Mm-hmm.
you research and find the right organization that fits, your vision and what you want to do as your project.
Of course. And you want to make sure you do the diligence on finding the right organization. I know there's a nonprofit that's based in Chile. Alvaro and Wheel the World had done some work in Peru around making Machu Picchu wheelchair accessible. And I know they have much larger sites, but not quite sure what the scope is. But
Well,
what I might do.
I'm from Peru.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm from Peru, and it's very hard for someone who is from Chile or from Ecuador or from Colombia to come to other people country and make it accessible. Like, and what you know what I mean. So will the world, partner with tour agencies to bring people that they already, to bring people tourists to go to Machu Picchu. So these tour agencies are already working. Yeah,
Yeah,
I already
operating
operating
locally. Yeah.
locally with people with disabilities. So they haven't made Machu Picchu,
Yeah.
accessible. They are just bringing people to visit Machu Picchu, and that's one of the projects I wanted to do this year. But like I say again, we don't know what's going to happen. But I wanted to do an inclusive trip for girls to visit Machu Picchu. I already have my contractors, my tour operators that are amazing. They have been doing this for a long time. But back in February, we had like the mudslide, and yeah,
The
and
mudslides. Yeah.
the train rails came off. So yeah, and
Oh my
then
gosh.
weeks later, the corona grew. So I don't know how is that right now. I don't know what is the status. I've been in touch with my tour operators. I haven't sent no programs. I haven't sent anything to the girls that are interested, because I want to make sure that everything is back to normal in Peru, because I don't feel like bringing people that, they can be in danger. So I have to wait. I have to wait for
100%.
that.
Yeah, so I love all the messages here around leveraging local expertise, wanting to support local organizations, making sure you're doing the diligence. I think the coronavirus epidemic has really, put a lot of initiatives on pause, because we're just in such a period of uncertainty. But what we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about all things
Perfect.
Kilimanjaro. I've been using Anchor to record these podcast episodes. I wanted to include a little bit about why. First of all, it's totally free, and they have all these creation tools that have allowed me to record and edit this podcast right from my phone and computer. Anchor's even helped me distribute my podcast, so now you can hear this episode across Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. If you've always wanted to start a podcast, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. And welcome back to Tiffany and You. We're here chatting with Marcela Marañon, very visible on social media. You can find her at The Journey of a Brave Woman. Before the break, we were chatting a little bit about a project that she's looking to launch in Peru, which I actually think is a good segue to the remainder of our conversation about Kilimanjaro. But interestingly enough, the first time that I ever did a high altitude hike was hiking the Inca Trail in Machu Picchu.
Yeah, that's amazing, I bet.
And yeah, so I did that in 2017, and now come 2020, both you and I have done the Kilimanjaro trek. What was the inspiration there? Is it something that you've always wanted to do?
Well, the opportunity to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, yes, came as a blessing for me. I to be honest, I was never interested or was my dream, but I think that was a challenge for me, that something different, very different from all of my travels. I have never, after my disability, after I have never or camp. So like go for camping, So
Yeah,
and
wow.
and I wanted to do this because this was a new challenge, a new experience for me. So the inspiration behind all of this is like, okay, well, I'm gonna use this opportunity that I have right now to be able to spread awareness about inclusivity and accessibility in the most beautiful parts in the world and in the most challenging parts of the world, like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. So this is why I decided to do that. And that is the reason that kept me motivated to get to the summit. I'm going to do this because I know that there are very good people around the world, like Friends of Access Israel, that want to make the world inclusive and accessible. And, and I support their mission because they go with mine. So that's what I did it.
I love that. And did you do any training ahead of
No,
time?
but I go for a boxing. I go to boxing classes. So
yeah, and I think you bike too.
I go for boxing classes, classes, and I'm very active. So I didn't need to be in the gym all the time. I think boxing once or twice a week is a lot for me. But
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And
when you travel around the world by yourself, you already have like survival skills. You already train yourself enough. You have this mentality that I'm going to be okay. Nothing will stop me. So I think that mentally I was already prepared.
Yes. And as a person with a disability, it's like you likely also have had to learn how to adapt and persevere and be resilient, and overcome adversity, so there's so much mental strength that's already there as well. How did you actually find the whole experience as a wheelchair user? Your first time hiking, your first time camping?
Like you say, those 15 days were, I learned lots of lessons from that hiking. As a wheelchair user, it was very hard for me to adapt to 15 days with no independence at all, because as you know, it's a very steep mountain. And I was sitting in the trekker 24/7. I was depending on my porters because, without porters, you're nothing in Mount Kilimanjaro. You have to have your porters. So my porters became my team, and my team became my legs. And so I was always depending on them to get to the next stop. So to answer to your question is that it is all about adapting your mind and your body into that situation, right? So for 15 days I had to do that to make it happen.
Yeah. And I think this is also a beautiful lesson. I think one of the things I'm learning as a disabled person is I just grew up being hyper self-reliant and hyper independent because I felt like asking for help was a sign that would remind me that I was disabled.
Exactly.
And then it would reinforce these messages. But I'm also learning beautiful lessons about interdependence, right? And the fact that the only way we move around in this world is by connecting with other people. And that was actually one of the lessons that I learned at Kilimanjaro, which is, I had to, the porters and the guides were so wonderful. They offered to carry my pack. I had someone from my group and one of our guides holding each one of my arms as I was making it to the summit. So it was literally like I literally needed people to help hold me up because I just was. It was hard.
And let's be honest here. We need that people. We need them. We need them to conquer the mountain.
Yes.
And and you really learn humbleness, because you see these porters that are very poor. They don't have the right equipment for them. They don't wear the right equipment. They don't use the right equipment. They don't have the clothes for this kind of mountain, for this kind of trekking. And you see them, they're poor people that has one of the hardest job in the world. And they're happy. They're happy. They're always singing. They're always, with a lot of energy. They're always willing to help tourists all around the world. And you learn to be humble, and you learn to do not be egotistic, because you lose everything. That
Yeah.
mountain is very challenging in so many ways, because, you know, if you think that you are the best of the best, once you are in that mountain, man, you really aren't.
Yes, no, it's so true. I love this. I mean, the porters, all of the guides, everyone who helped, like everyone is there to help us make our dream
Exactly.
come true, you know, of making it to the summit. It's such a selfless, beautiful act, and the amount of positivity they
Positivity,
have.
and we do this
Um,
together. We conquer the mountain together. And actually, the most beautiful thing here is that your victory, you conquering the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, is also their victory. You know what I mean?
mhm. Yeah, yeah. What is it? It's a one
Exactly.
team, one dream. Were there other, so I want to chat a little bit more about Summit Day. So I know you ended up, so for those who haven't hiked Kilimanjaro, you end up making it to something called Gilman's Point. That's kind of the first checkpoint. Then there's Stella Point, and then there's Uhuru Peak at the end. I know just following some of your posts on social media, you ended up making it
Yes,
to
yes,
Stella Point. Is
because,
that
you
correct?
know, we were in these trekkers, and it was the trekkers were very, you know, when we go to Kibo. Did you say in Kibo, by the way? Okay, so when
Yep,
you
Kibo Hut.
ascend to the summit, you know that it's very steep, right? There's a lot of rocks to get to the summit,
Mm-hmm.
to the peak, and it took us a little while to get to Gilsman's, more than anybody who doesn't have disability. And uh, I made it to Estella because the very late, because of the path from Gilsman's to Stella is very narrow. And do you see that cliff? That was
Yes.
super scary. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was a very
yes,
narrow path, and it was also
yes,
very
yes.
icy.
And it was
It was very
very
icy.
windy in Uhuru, and it was very icy for the trekkers. So the leader of the paratrek team, the owner of the paratrek trekkers, do not to decided to not continue. Like the 4 people with disabilities should not continue going to Huru because it's too windy, it's too icy, and it can be too dangerous. So that's why I got into Estela, and I couldn't move forward because I was
Yeah,
stopped by Omer, who decided
yeah.
not to take us all the way there.
How did you feel about that?
I was already. I was like, it was freezing for me. I was already.
Yes, I was
Yeah,
wearing
well,
seven layers.
us, I don't know if you saw me, but we were wrapped
Yeah.
with sleeping bags. We have like 9 layers.
Yes.
We have 4 layers, you know, you know, for to protect our legs. So it's how can I say? It's very, to avoid hypothermia, we had to cover ourselves. And so for
Yes.
me, I really feel like I really wish I made it to Huru and take my photo. But to be honest, I am not trying to impress anybody. Estella was fine for
Mm-hmm.
me. If that was for my safety and the safety of others, I would just I am happy that I stopped in Estella. And if people said, "Did you climb Mount Kilimanjaro?" I did. I trekked Mount Kilimanjaro and I got to the
Yes.
summit. I don't have to prove you
Yes.
that I made it to Uhuru just to look cool. I was in the summit, and that's enough for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also just, I think your group leader
Yeah.
knew what the conditions were. You also know yourself well and the conditions. And the funny thing is it's like you see all these photos, but it was so hard. like the photos don't capture how difficult that summit was. And to get to Uhuru Peak, to get to any of the points, you know,
Yeah,
Gilman's or Stella or Uhuru, to even just
it's
get
so
there is
far.
so hard. Like my full summit day was 16 hours, and as you know, we sleep, you know, 2 or 3 hours before waking up at midnight or
Yeah.
1 a.m. To start summit day. So it was a very long day. I actually had, and I want to share it with you because we both have similar disability origin stories. I just had this beautiful moment on the mountain where because all of our guides were men, all of the people who were in my smaller group who were a little bit slower were also men, and we were all just helping each other. It really just reminded me of my dad and the fact that he really gave
Oh,
me my sense of adventure. And and it's only been within the past couple of years that I have been exploring more adaptive sport. So like learning how to ride a bicycle again,
mhm.
going adaptive rock climbing, exploring hiking, you know, and the nature of our disabilities are different. So we'll participate in different sports or we'll use our own adaptations however we need to. But yeah, I just had this wonderful moment of really just
Oh,
feeling
and
like
I
he
bet
was
he
there with me
was,
that day.
Tiffany, because oh my God, once you are in that in the summit, it's just unbelievable, and you get very emotional and start thinking about how blessed you are, and not only that, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, man, if I was able to climb this summit, I can conquer anything in my life.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, it's funny because when I came back from Kilimanjaro, I came back right into the beginning of this
Hmm.
COVID-19
Me too.
outbreak. And after, yeah, but both of us, and after you come back from Kilimanjaro, you're just like, I'm on
Exactly.
top of the
Yes.
world. I can do anything. And then now we're all in our
And
homes.
that's how
So,
exactly how I feel.
but but I'm grateful because I remember thinking that I had booked that trip too soon and that I wasn't giving myself enough time to train because
Hmm.
I'm not normally very active. But I couldn't have picked a better time because if it had been a week or two later, there likely wouldn't have been a chance that I would we would have been able to have
Yes.
that opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the opportunity to meet
Yeah.
each other,
Well,
because it's just like too much coincidence that we were there at the same time and also meeting in social media.
I know. And there was a part of me that, you know, I did want to approach the Pfizer group because given the nature of my work, like I always want to learn about why, you know, wheelchair users or people who have different disabilities have decided to do something so challenging. But I was just so sick. I just like did not have any energy. So very serendipitous that I started seeing your posts afterward. And I just remember for probably the next month after Kilimanjaro, I just could not stop talking about it. So thank you for giving me another opportunity to just relive that experience because it was so real and it was so valid, and I don't want it to just
Exactly.
be
I
another
don't I
trip.
don't want it to be another trip neither, because you cannot compare this kind of trip with any other one. No, no. I cannot. I have been
No.
in very beautiful places around the world, and Kilimanjaro is the top for me. Is the top of my list right
Mm,
now of the most beautiful places I have visited, because I learned lots of lessons, and so lessons that I didn't learn when I was traveling to the other beautiful places in the world.
yeah, yeah. And what's next on your travel bucket list when all of
Okay,
this
so I
shelter in
wanted to
place
go
is over?
to travel Europe, be more in Europe. Like I heard Barcelona is very wheelchair friendly, and I wanted to go and see that because I don't go by what people say is all right. I just want to do and see it with my own eyes. I wanted to go to Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go to Italy because one of my goals is to visit the seven wonders of the world. So far I have been in four. I have been in
Mm,
Mexico, I have been in Peru, I have been in Jordan, and the other one I have been is Taj Mahal in India. So I wanted to go to Italy to go to the Colosseum. So after Barcelona, and then from there I wanted to go to Turkey and then back to Israel, and yeah.
So you sounds like you have a big Euro trip in your future.
Like for 2 months, once my was with her dad, because I am divorced, and my ex-husband always takes my daughter the whole summer is his job, so I'm taking my break and I want to travel, so that's what I'm doing, and that's what I wanted to do this summer. I don't know if that's gonna be possible, but and then after that I wanted to come back and go to Peru and make this accessibility project possible, and do my Machu Picchu with the girls. But I don't know. I mean, right now, all I have to do is just live day by day and pray for the best and
exactly. And just like
yes,
we always
adapt,
do, we adapt.
and just hope for the best, and it always stay positive. If you stay positive, if you plan too much, I don't think it's very fun. I don't like to plan my things 100%, to be honest, Tiffany. I know that, well, when you handle people, you have to, right? But in my case, I go by myself. So all I have to do is worry about myself. So I don't plan it to the fullest. I just go with the flow.
Yeah. I love it. Solo travel is something that I would love to do more of. So would love to close by just asking, how can we support your work? I know you have this merch store. Where can we find you on social media? And how can we better support
you can support me by purchasing my t-shirts so I can make my accessibility projects available, and also, check out my website and read my blogs that I'm gonna be posting soon. Yeah, that's how can you support me. And this is how I want to end this, Tiffany. Do not do things, if you want to support me, do it. But the best gift or the best support that you can give me is if you help someone else that is near to you. You know what I mean? Like, for example, with this coronavirus thing, there is so many people with disabilities that are in their homes. They cannot leave their homes because they're very vulnerable to catching this virus, and it can be very fatal for them. So they don't have many families, they don't have many friends who can help them go to the grocery store for them. So it's very good. It will be nice, and probably you're gonna post this podcast later, the whole pandemic. But I think that it's very important to help people with disabilities on anything. And because we are a very forgotten community. So if you like my story, if you want to support me, all I'm asking you is that support my community, advocate for my community on accessibility and inclusivity.
I love it. And on that note, Thank you so much, Marcela, for being on my podcast. And
yes, thank you so much.
Excited to follow your work. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Tiffany and You. This is your host, Tiffany Yu. My ultimate hope for this is that we can co-create something beautiful together. So if you have feedback or suggestions on topics you'd like us to explore, I'd love to hear from you. This podcast now has its own Instagram handle at Tiffany and You, and you can also find me across social media at I'm Tiffany Yu. That's the letter I, the letter M, followed by my first and last name. We're hoping to drop episodes every Tuesday, so I hope you'll join us for the next episode. And a special thank you to Root Hub for my opening and closing podcast medley.
Tiffany and You. This one is done and another coming soon. A special rendezvous for Tiffany and You.